of the program Agric Economy on television, Abuja, Nigeria, and I am Khadija Oluwatoyin. Like I said in the last episode, that the topic of our last episode, where we had the rural community development through agriculture, is a broad one, and we were not able to touch on one aspect of it. So we'll be doing a continuation from there, and then we'll be taking a fresh topic to be the impact of government activities on agriculture finance. And our expert in the studio is with us to tell us more about our last discussion, and of course to touch more on government involvement in activities, in agric finance. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
From our last discussion, where we had rural community development through agriculture.
Yes.
I was trying to remember during the course of discussion on one topic which you mentioned, which is improved seedlings.
Yes.
And we're not able to really touch on it before time elapsed for the last episode.
Yeah.
And now, quickly, just in 3 minutes, I just want you to tell us how this would be of rural development. How can rural development be achieved with this improved seedlings?
Actually, we have a whole lot of research institutes, especially agricultural research institutes in Nigeria, in Ibadan, in Abuja, and some other places, that have been saddled with the task of improving seedlings of various crops. And with these improved seedlings, most of the time, the key response or the key expectation of those improved seedlings is the germination time, the yield time, and also the fortification of those seedlings, and as well as the hybrid of two different crops, as we see in other climes. So when these improved seedlings are introduced to farmers in the rural areas, they have the tendency to be able to improve their yield, to be able to improve the quality of the crops, and also to be able to have a better hybrid at the end of the day for the public to purchase. So improved seedlings is what is being used in other climes now, and it's also really a game changer in agriculture, because some seeds are able to reproduce about 10 times more than the original ones, based on the improvement on their genetics. And also some are also able to grow bigger than their initial nature, based on improved genetics through improved seedlings. So these improved seedlings will also help the farmers to be able to get more per hectare on their crops, and also to be able to have very good produce at the end of the day that we can call a bountiful harvest, and at the end of the day be able to ensure that they reap even more from their productions. At the end of the day.
We've heard farmers. Of course, we will keep complaining as farmers,
yes,
so that we can get it right. I've heard farmers discuss, and they feel that these improved seeds are expensive,
yes,
unlike regular. How do you think government can come in this?
Yes, I know for sure that government gives grants to these agricultural research institutes, and also in conjunction with other foreign donors, to ensure that this research work is done and the improved seedlings are produced. I believe that government at the initial stage of research of this produce needs to go into agreement with these agencies and the foreign donors to ensure that the pricing is on a governmental intervention level, to the extent that despite the fact that a percentage or a cost has been used to get those improved seedlings, government should be able to allow these agencies to get these seedlings to the rural farmers at a subsidized cost. The key word there is a subsidized cost, because when the cost is subsidized, then the farmers will be able to afford it and be able to use those seedlings and be able to make it profitable, while the government will also add the end result of improved products in the market and reduce food poverty.
Okay, as much as we want to shy away from not talking about these myths the myth being that some of these improved seedlings, some farmers still see it as one, how will I put, I don't want to use a term that would not, they see it as not so good.
Okay.
Let me in quote, not so good.
Or what they are not used to.
And they feel that it's going to be having an adverse effect if consumed and rest of it. Please just tell us in like 10 seconds. Ali the fears of farmers first. Yes.
The defects they could have.
Yes.
Actually, from research, we discovered that improved seedlings do not really have any defects on consumption when it is produced. Once the necessary precautions are taken and it is grown in a natural habitat or natural environment, there is no defect in consumption. It's all over the world, and there are no issues of defect at all.
Okay, so moving back, I think that has done justice to our topic of the last episode. So quickly we'll delve into our topic for today, which is the impact of government activities on agric finance.
Okay.
It's a big English. We need you to first and foremost help us break it down for farmers to first understand what the topic is.
Actually, when we are talking about impact of government activities on agri-finance, it's basically telling us the efforts that the government has made to ensure seamless financing for agricultural activities in the country, or the several interventions of government as regards agricultural investment and agricultural interventions for farmers to be able to have access to funding for their farming activities. That is basically what we are talking about.
Okay, so what in your own term, what are these activities? In what ways?
Yes, the government is saddled with the responsibility first of ensuring that there is food sufficiency for its growing population. We all know that the population of Nigeria is not static, so year in, year out, we have more mouths to feed. So government looking at this scenario have to ensure that there is enough food production to be able to meet the teeming population of the country. And how can government intervene in this area? You must intervene in the area of having farmers have access to the funds that they need to be able to make agricultural production seamless. How do they intervene in these areas? Knowing fully well that we have two different arms of funding in the country, the private and the government funding. We have discovered over time that in the private sector that they have decided not to fund agriculture to a large extent because agriculture is viewed as a high-risk investment to a private lender. For example, the commercial banks, the microfinance bank, they view agriculture as a high-risk business that they will not want to go into it. The second reason why the commercial banks will not want to go into agriculture is because of the time. Before you can really realize, give meaningful funding to agriculture, it must be a long-term funding, which the commercial banks in Nigeria do not have. Most of the deposits of commercial banks and their funding patterns are short-term, so they will not be able to integrate agric funding into it effectively. Statistically, we discovered that commercial banks are funding agriculture to the tune of maybe 4.2% per annum. They are more eager to fund oil and gas business to the tune of 25% per annum. You see the difference. They are even funding other business ventures between the range of 10% to 15% while leaving agriculture in the lodge because of these fears and because of economic, ecological factors and the rest. So it leaves more of the funding initiative with the government, and that is where the government needs to come in. I'm going to talk about two dimensions where the government has come in and where they should work hard on. The first one is the direct intervention by government through the Nigeria NISAL, that's Nigeria Integrated Agricultural, that's for microfinance funding through a government agency called NISAL. Now, we have seen also the Central Bank of Nigeria intervention through the Anchor Borrowers Program. We have seen also Agricultural Transformation Program. We have also seen credit Agric scheme that are being introduced by the government. All these schemes are aimed at providing access to funding for farmers. So when you look at these schemes, they have been able to a large extent help farmers to be able to leverage on these opportunities because of their long-term funding, because of their single-digit interest, and because of the direct access that practicing farmers have to be able to secure these funds. So, and because these funds are tailored specifically to the farming communities, to the farmers, to be able to boost agriculture. So the government has intervened over the years in this area. That is direct intervention. The second aspect that the government needs to do, which we have not done so much, is the area of budgetary expenditure when it comes to agriculture in Nigeria. Over time, we have discovered that the government has continuously reduced the budget allocation to agriculture. And according to the Maputo Declaration on Agriculture and Food Security, it is expected that African governments are expected to allocate at least 10% of their budget to agriculture. But if you look at Nigeria, probably 0.25, or the highest over time has been 0.4 or thereabout allocated to agriculture. So when there is not enough funding for agricultural practices and agric value chain, it will also hamper their productivity and what they can bring out to the system. So as much as government has been making efforts to intervene in financing agriculture in Nigeria, there are still so many things left undone. Why I also feel that the government has not done so much is that the government needs to prep up agriculture to a level where it will be very attractive for commercial investors, both local and foreign. And how can they do this if the government itself has not taken the initiative to bring out enough funds to attack the various areas where agriculture needs intervention? Another thing again is the issue of government partnership when it comes to agriculture. Just like we see government partner in oil and gas, you see government have a share of 40%, the foreign investors have 60% and thereabout. Even recently, the government bought into Dangote refinery because of what it can produce, having shares in it. So government needs to bring out such initiatives with investors as well, so as to partner with, when a government partners with an investor, whether local or foreign, it gives a level of confidence of acceptability of those companies, both among the farmers and also among Nigerians. So that is another area the government needs to work on, to ensure that they create partnerships for people, investors coming into farming, to the extent that they bring a particular percentage of the funding, maybe through land and also other funding interventions, and the foreign or local investors also come with a percentage to be able to boost agricultural production. And over time, when the government sees that this production has stabilized, they can either withdraw or become a permanent shareholder in it, while government owes the regulatory aspect of regulating whatever it is that they are doing. But when people are not seeing these partnerships, they might feel that the government just want to bring them in and leave them in the lodge after a while if the business does not succeed. So apart from direct intervention to farmers, the government needs to also look at the areas of partnership and also have budgets that can attack agricultural projects headlong.
Okay, you talked about regulatory pricing and the rest of it. Regulatory, at the long run, government coming in to be, that's if this, coming together has yielded what
to regulate practices and or whatever it is that these companies are doing, to ensure that it's not inimical to the growth of Nigeria and also to the detriment of Nigerians. That's where regulation comes in.
Okay, you talked about government giving loans and grants and rest of it. I can remember some time back, I don't know if it's through the Empower program that farmers were giving money. And the truth is that some people got this Empower money
Yes.
and are not farmers. They are not, they don't even have any link.
At all.
Everybody, yes. This person just hears of it and calls the other person to come and key in. And the thing is, we forget as Nigerians that these things are going to, back
has its effect, yes, on the long run,
on the people. Because if this government is saying, for example, 5 naira is what we're giving back to the farmers, let them have a 50-50 cover and then be able to have a return back. And then the said people do not have access
at
to
all.
this at all. To
then nothing is happening.
Then do you understand? And so what? How else? Because there should be a criteria as to people assessing these funds.
Yes, thank you very much for that question. And I'm going to use the Anchor Borrower Program to actually answer that question. Anything we do in Nigeria, we cannot remove political sentiments from it and political connections. And that is why you see it play out even in the Empower program, where politics is attached and practicing farmers are left out and given to people that are not really into farming. So it will not really make a difference. Going back to the Anchor Borrower program, it has various challenges, and one of the challenges is the inability to repay those loans by those people that have accessed the loans. Why are they not able to repay those loans? One, some of them are not farmers. They got the loan through political connections. Two, most Nigerians have a sense of entitlement that whatever they get from government is a national cake and is their share of the national cake. So, and what is the aim and objectives of the Anchor Borrower program? Is to give a particular set at this time, and when they are paying back, another set benefits. So when we have about 60% of the loans not paid, it hampers the effectiveness of the program for another stream to be able to have access to it. And that is the problem with the Anchor Borrower program presently. So we also discovered that the commercial banks and the other banks that were used for these Anchor Borrower programs, for example, were disbursing these loans with just the sole aim to disburse and to get their own cuts, as in the interest that accrues to them. They do not have the end point of recovery in mind at all. So when they are disbursing, they are not doing due diligence as regards recovery of these loans. So that is one of the major problems. So the issue now rests on the government through the central bank and all its the commercial banks and the donors that are being used for the disbursement of these Anchor Borrower programs to be able to ensure that the criteria is streamlined and is stringent, to ensure that more due diligence is done on those so-called farmers, to also ensure that when these facilities are given, efforts are being made to ensure that these loans come back. So which was lacking in the disbursement made that brought about these problems. And also to ensure that every government funding is not an exercise for national cake for anyone. So these are the issues that have been tabled that the CBN has to look into, and enforcement has to be done. Because if you take a loan and you refuse to pay, the government or even the banks have the right to use every means necessary to recover those loans. So, because just like you said of the Empower case, when you have 20, 30% or 50% of the people not practicing farmers assessing these loans, it means that the aim and the intention will not be achieved on the long run. And that is what is happening in other government intervention programs that we are talking about, like the Agricultural Transformation Agenda, the Anchor Borrower Program, credit scheme for farmers. Because some people are using political connections to access these loans for various things other than farming. So government needs to sit down, evaluate these intervention schemes and look at the loopholes with a view of blocking them, so that these interventions will go directly to those that they are intended for and not otherwise.
When the President Muhammadu Buhari's government came into power in 2015 and started with this program of change begins with me.
Yes.
It then now means that really change really needs to start with everybody, not just those that are, the white collar job and the rest of, and yes. On that note, we'll quickly take a break. We've heard it from our guests, the things that should be done in ensuring that if loans and grants are given to farmers, criteria should be made stringent so that these loans and grants get to the grassroots, gets to the farmer intended for the purpose. On this note, we'll take a quick break. When we return, the program continues. Stay tuned. It's still the program Agric Economy, and I am your host. And in the studio, speaking to us is Mr. Gabriel Dako. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Like you said, criteria should be made stringent, and
Yes.
so this brings us down to the fact that even the agencies in charge of these programs should be checked. There should be checks
Yes.
and balances. Do you think this is enough?
Actually, in Nigeria, we have seen over time, just like when you want to talk about corruption, for example, you discover that corruption is like water. It seeps through everywhere. So it is not only government officials that are corrupt, even people in private sector are corrupt, even the conductors that are running buses are corrupt, even the salesman that is selling for his boss is corrupt, because his aim is to ensure that he gets enough money to go and start his own. Even your house help is corrupt, because he can decide to be stealing your foodstuffs to take to his family without your knowledge. So it means that this corruption has has entered into the fabric of the people in Nigeria. And first and foremost, we need to debrief ourselves of corrupt tendencies by ensuring that government puts in a program and make people's scapegoat for positive and negative reasons, so that people will see to it that when I do something good, this is what I can get, and when I do something negative, it will also beam me in a negative light to the world. So that brings me to your question about what can be done to these agencies. We know over time that agencies of government tend to give loans to those that will bring returns to them. And when you have collected returns from someone, for example, for a loan that you processed, it will be very difficult for you to enforce those loans. So the first aspect of it is to ensure that every agency or every bank that is used for intervention purposes is held accountable first for the recovery of those loans, while those agencies or banks hold their officers accountable for those loans. When there is a laid down procedure on making recovery paramount, so the agencies will ensure that their officers in the process of appraisal and disbursement of these loans also ensure that recovery is paramount, and anything that will aid the recovery not to be successful, they will not delve into it, like collecting thank you or collecting cuts from the loan. They will stop it, because they know that it will have implications. For example, if I give you a loan of 100 million and you have already given me 5 million or 10 million in it, when you want to enforce it, I will also tell you, or tell your organization, that tell your staff to bring this 5 million as well. So it will paint them in a bad light. So the government should enforce that the area of recovery of those loans is not negotiable, and they should make sure that there are stringent policies in place to deter people from going into collusion with people that are supposed to access these funds and with the intention of not paying back. Because when you are able to, when you know that you are not gaining any monetary benefit, you will be able to do a fair appraisal of that request and be able to give management a fair advice or recommendation on a particular customer or a particular farmer that is requesting for the loan.
Okay, on that note, it brings us to the to some saying in the public domain that data collection is key. And
Yes.
this is the basic problem we have. It cuts across different sectors of the economy. It cuts
Yes.
across. If we are able, this is just me opinionating now.
Yes.
If we're able to get our data updated.
Yes.
For example, in Nigeria, you register for your name.
Yes.
You're going for your telecom, this thing, do registration. You go to the bank, you do registration. If you have data, you go to even the police station, you have to still drop your data.
Yeah.
So sometimes people just go and even maybe we just drop a fake and it will not tally, people will not know.
Yes.
But if we're able to have a proper data
system
that
can connect all aspects of life.
The person's name, you just put Khadija and then it brings it all up. You see, born here, done here, this here, that here. It is easier for these agencies to apprehend these people who has vehemently refused to pay back this loan. We hope that the government is listening to us and they are able to, tap into the wealth of your knowledge. All your suggestions have been put to use. On that note, to wrap it up on the program, thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me.
It's still the program Agric Economy, and I have been your host, Khadija Uluwatoyin. Join us again, same time, same station next week. Gotcha.